Ni hao, pessoas que estão devendo até as calças para os chineses. Tudo bem com vocês? Bom, vamos ver um vídeo hoje sobre o mito da China colonizando a África através de dívidas. Mas tem que ser em inglês, tá?
In the past 2 decades, China has built large infrastructure projects in almost every country in Africa. And this has made Western critics uncomfortable.
China and Africa can forge an even stronger, comprehensive strategic and cooperative partnership.
A common portrayal of China's lending practices is known as debt trap diplomacy.
É conhecido como a armadilha diplomacia da armadilha chinesa, de débito chinês, né? Mas isso é conhecido aonde? Né? Na Europa, nos Estados Unidos, no Ocidente branco, né?
A phrase made popular after being used in government documents during the Trump administration.
Claro.
The so-called debt trap is created when a country lends to poorer countries, intentionally overwhelming them with unsustainable debt, forcing them to surrender strategic assets or concede increased political leverage.
Que é literalmente o que o Fundo Monetário Internacional faz, o Banco Mundial faz, né? Literalmente o que os Estados Unidos vem fazendo desde a Segunda Guerra Mundial, no processo de reconstrução do mundo. É a mesma coisa, cara. A mesma coisa.
But so far, there's no evidence that such a debt trap has been sprung in Africa.
Now, there's always a certain grain of truth, like with every stereotype to it, but it breaks down very, very quickly upon any type of serious examination.
The focus on debt trap diplomacy is part of wider Western anxieties towards China in Africa.
We've already seen that Chinese investments in Chinese infrastructure projects have been linked to increasing Chinese influence within the host country ruling elite. That may end up becoming somewhat of a leverage point for China to push some of these countries or ruling elites to side with China on critical issues that are important to the US or to its allies.
Vocês viram o sincericídio do cara? Vamos lá. Vocês acham assim, né? Vocês acham que os países brancos, literalmente os países que colonizaram a África, estão em algum momento preocupados que os países africanos não vão conseguir pagar suas dívidas com a China e, de alguma forma, perderiam, sei lá, um porto, um aeroporto para a China? Assim, de verdade, assim, vocês acham que esses países, os mesmos países que praticaram genocídio em países africanos, estão preocupados com os africanos? Não, né? É como esse cara acabou de falar, cometeu um sincericídio. Eles estão preocupados que, com a China exercendo essa influência, os caras comecem a se alinhar com a China e fornecer coisas para a China, ao invés de fornecer para os colonizadores safados. É só isso, cara. Aí eles vêm com esse papinho de diplomacia da armadilha da dívida, que não cola, né? Quando começa a analisar os números, não cola.
But while the US has focused its Africa strategy on aid and social services, China has been building.
African governments themselves said, we are tired of aid and charity. We want to do trade. We want to be treated like partners. The Chinese came along and said, great, we don't do aid and charity. We want to do business with you.
Claro.
Global Gateway will mobilize.
Porque, vocês viram a diferença, né? Quando esses países colonizadores safados, inclusive... Essa senhora aí da tela, ela é... agora eu não lembro se a cidadania dela é alemã, mas ela é de família belga, né? A Bélgica, o rei da Bélgica colonizou o Congo e no processo de colonização matou 15 milhões de congoleses. 15 milhões! Você não vê ninguém da direita desesperado aí falando, nossa, porque o rei do Congo é o cara que mais matou pessoas na história da humanidade. Não vê, né? Mas enfim. Então, essa pessoa aí tá querendo... Chega lá na África e fala assim, a gente veio aqui ajudar vocês, mas para isso a gente quer que vocês peguem financiamento só nos nossos bancos e a gente inclusive vai controlar o ouro de vocês, tá? Porque vocês não sabem controlar o ouro de vocês.
300 billion euros till 2027.
Now the US and Europe are answering back with their own infrastructure initiatives to counter China, but African experts are skeptical.
At the end of the day, China has been that guy around the corner with, a bouquet of flowers to Africa, the US, Europe and the UK have time and time again said, be careful of the flowers you see out of the window. They have thorns on them.
In Ghana, the handover of power from the British government went off smoothly and with dignity.
From the 1950s into the 1970s, countries on the African continent gained independence from their European colonizers. US and European-led organizations like the IMF and the World Bank funded much-needed infrastructure across the continent. But that slowly stopped.
The United
Mas vocês veem, né? Eles financiaram, mas não explica como é que foram essa questão do pagamento, né? E aí, nesse caso, quando é o FMI, o Banco Mundial, etc., financiando, não é diplomacia da armadilha da dívida.
United States and Europe kind of backed away from infrastructure in the 60s and 70s. It's something that we did very, very well for a long time in the post-war era. We built vast amounts of infrastructure throughout the world. And one of the things you see in Africa is that so much of the railways and the highways and the infrastructure was built during the colonial period. And back then it was quite solid. But
assim, com perdão da expressão, né? Vocês sabem que eu não gosto de xingar aqui, mas foda-se, né? Foda-se que os colonizadores construíram estrada, construíram os caralho, né? Como uma vez eu falei, eu trabalhava com um cara da Bélgica, e aí ele falou assim, não, mas a gente foi lá, né, teve essa questão aí dos mortos e tal, mas a gente construiu estrada, a gente construiu isso, construiu aquilo, assim, cara, vamos pesar aqui, né? Todas essas coisas que vocês construíram, 15 milhões de mortos. Valeu a pena? Aí ele começou a pensar, né, dele assim, pois é, né? Disse, não vale a pena então, cara, então pau no cu de vocês com essas estradas, cara.
It's been decrepit because the former colonial governments are not plowing in lots of money.
Não, e assim, acho que foi no Mali, acho que foi no Mali, agora que os franceses foram expulsos, e os caras destruíram tudo. Um monte de estrutura, escola, e sei lá, um monte de coisa que eles construíram no aeroporto, os caras foram lá, vocês estão expulsando a gente, nós vamos destruir tudo.
Enter China. As early as the 1970s, Beijing began building the Tazara Railway, a link between the Zambian town of Kapiriamposhi and Dar es Salaam port in Tanzania. At the time, it was the longest railway in sub-Saharan Africa, allowing Zambia to ship copper, bypassing white-ruled Rhodesia and South Africa. It also gave China much-needed political allies.
Beijing said, we have problems, you have problems, we will help you out. And they embarked on this. And this is really some of the early seeds that China sowed in Africa that later, came to clearly define the divide between the West and the East as far as China's involvement in Africa is concerned.
In the early 2000s, as China looked to expand markets and political influence abroad, its investment in Africa ramped up.
The Chinese said, well, guess what? We are the best in the world now at producing large-scale infrastructure fast and cheap. And we have a surplus of capital. So we'll loan you the money. We have our great contracting companies. We have all of this skill and all this ability to deliver fast and cheap. And in that sense, it was really an ideal match.
Quem é que tinha isso também, né? Assim, guardadas as devidas proporções e também a questão de corrupção e etc. O Brasil tinha isso, né? O Brasil tinha isso com várias construtoras grandes. Camargo Correia, Odebrecht, tem uma outra grande que eu esqueci o nome agora, mas o Brasil literalmente fazia isso. O Brasil podia estar ocupando essa posição também na África, de novo, né, guardada aí, questão de corrupção, etc., mas vem uns arrombados que nem o Moro e acaba com a indústria nacional, acaba com tudo, né? Os paga-pau dos Estados Unidos. Né? Mas podia ser o Brasil, lá na África, construindo um monte de coisa, né? E criando essa relação com os países africanos.
They recognized what Africa's development stage was, and they said, you know what? 30 years ago, that was us. We recognize a lot of what's going on here. You don't have enough infrastructure. You have a large population that's growing quickly. Also, let's not underestimate, there is a shared history here of anti-colonial struggle. So you tick all of those different boxes, and Africa made a lot of sense for the Chinese to come in.
China is currently involved in an estimated 35 African countries and has made significant contributions to their infrastructure, including ports, railways, and power plants.
It's estimated that China has invested more than $340 billion in Africa. So compared to how much China is investing across the world, this may not be as much, but for Africa, it's a lot of money because of the huge infrastructure gap that Africa faces.
But there are noticeable
Shanghai.
differences between Chinese financing and how the West lends, historically with low interest rates and flexible terms.
There must be over millions of different types of loans out there. But if you were to take an eagle's eye view of the different kinds of loans involving Chinese lenders, then you can broadly categorize them into three different types.
The loans fall into three categories: zero interest loans offered as aid, concessional loans which have a lower interest rate often intended for large infrastructure projects, and the most common, commercial loans with higher interest rates in line with what you would get from a typical private bank.
One of the very interesting trends that we see when researchers discuss Chinese loans is that there is a tendency to bunch all three together. Well, the very first question you should ask yourself whenever you see something like that is, well, are they comparing apples to oranges? Because if you're comparing commercial loans to something available from the World Bank or one of its different agencies, then you're not really comparing like for like. And the fact of the matter is this, and I hope the borrowers out there are listening, 95%, if not 99%, of the loan agreement are there in favor of the lenders, no matter who you deal with. This is because by the time you sign that loan agreement and you get the money, you'll have the money in your hands, and the only thing the bank will have is a piece of paper. That is why the loan agreements are in their favor.
Mas isso para qualquer coisa, né? Como o cara falou, 99% dos
In
contratos.
one report which analyzed 100 Chinese contracts, it revealed that the loans are structured to give an advantage over other creditors and allows action to be taken if the borrower acts contrary to the interests of a People's Republic of China entity.
Ah, mas aí tudo bem, né? Pô, eu tô emprestando meu dinheiro para vocês querem me ferrar? Não dá, né, cara?
There are also unusual clauses that shroud agreements in secrecy.
Oh.
When you look at multilateral lenders like the World Bank and the different agencies, their shareholders are countries, and they're required to publish their lending and activities just to be transparent. They don't have any choice. On the other hand, when you come to commercial banks, then you'll see a very different case. And that is, banks often are under a duty of confidentiality to their clients. I think the Chinese banks are no different.
But the rush to give out loans by the Chinese has meant some of their early investments weren't as profitable as projected.
So when China stepped into the field, it was much welcomed by the developing world that there would be increased financing for infrastructure. However, with the rush to get projects off the ground, to put them into action and to begin construction, critical due diligence was often left by the wayside. Financial sustainability, social and environmental sustainability assessments kind of never were done, or were done haphazardly, or were simply not transparent or available to the populations. What this has ended up causing is states to take on projects that they initially thought were affordable, but unfortunately, they've been now saddled by debt.
Aí tem que incluir corrupção aí também, né? O que deve rolar de corrupção nessas paradas aí, mano. A China liberando dinheiro aí, que deve ter de gente que ficou rica nessa história.
China is coming for its pound of flesh in Uganda.
In 2021, the Entebbe International Airport in Uganda came under fire after local media reported that the airport would be taken over by China.
Isso não é verdade.
We call this a debt trap.
After closer examination of the contract, it was found there was no debt trap, and both sides have denied that the airport is in danger of a takeover.
Eu lembro que o presidente de Uganda foi no Twitter falar, gente, vocês estão usando o quê, né? Não, ele não falou isso. Mas ele foi no Twitter falar, não tem nada, a China não vai pegar o aeroporto. E o mais interessante é que a China perdoou a dívida, se eu não me engano, de 21 ou 23 países africanos. Tipo, perdoou, acabou, sabe? E agora, essa semana, eles lançaram um programa de tarifa zero para sei lá quantos países. Tipo, tarifa zero. Zero. Um dos países que vão se beneficiar é o Afeganistão, que é aqui do lado, aquele país que os Estados Unidos gastaram $1 trilhão para destruir, né? Olha como os Estados Unidos são burros. Olha como os caras são burros. Eles podiam gastar esse $1 trilhão em vários países, que é o que a China está fazendo com a nova Rota da Seda. Os Estados Unidos pegam $1 trilhão e destroem o Afeganistão, que é um país, cara, um país assim, desse tamanho. sabe? Olha como os caras são burros, né?
I think there is an assumption that certain governments are not able to look after themselves, or they're either not sophisticated enough, or just simply too corrupt to look after its own interests.
Mas isso
I think, in my personal view and experience, that just simply hasn't been true.
Essa ideia, a ideia, assim, o colonialismo acabou, né? Vamos botar bem entre aspas gigantes, assim, acabou, né? Mas a ideia da supremacia branca não acabou, né? Só porque tem menos colônias na África, não quer dizer que esses países brancos, como europeus e Estados Unidos, eles não enxergam, não continuam enxergando os africanos como seres humanos menores, né? Porque continuam. Tanto continuam que está rolando um movimento para devolver as coisas que foram roubadas por museus, principalmente o Museu Imperial Britânico. Está rolando esse movimento, né? A China recuperou um monte de coisa da Itália agora. Coisa de 2.000, 3.000 peças que estavam na Itália. E aí, uma das desculpas do Louvre, lá na França, né, o Museu do Louvre, e do Museu Imperial Britânico, foi o seguinte: não, os africanos não vão saber cuidar disso aqui. A gente cuida muito melhor. Então, a mentalidade dos caras não mudou. Eles vão continuar achando que os africanos não sabem cuidar do país deles, que os caras são corruptos, que eles são menos inteligentes, e é por isso que eles caem na lábia dos chineses. Cara, nada disso mudou.
Experts say more should be done by borrowing countries to make sure loans are more favorable to their interests. But the Chinese argue that the risk level is higher in African countries and greater repayment assurances are needed for loans that might not otherwise be available.
Certainly in my 20 years of experience, I've never seen a case where the Chinese bank will just say, look, don't read this, just sign on the dotted line. In fact, they will spend days and days and they're sitting with us, going through every line of the document and making sure the other side understands, because they know in 10 years' time, if they don't explain this clearly, this is going to come back and haunt them.
É interesse para a China que os caras paguem, né? É interesse, a China quer que os caras paguem.
Certainly, there are issues with how China finances projects. There are issues around transparency, but I don't think this is some sort of grand master plan from Beijing in order to ensnare developing countries into debt and become further beholden to Beijing.
Sobre transparência, tem um ponto interessante aqui que a China não tem que ser transparente com ninguém, a não ser com o país que está pegando o financiamento, né? A China tem zero obrigação de ser transparente com um bando de colonizador safado. Literalmente os países que invadiram a China. Então, quando o cara fala, não, tem esse problema aí de transparência, desculpa, eu vou ter que falar isso de novo, né? Pau no cu de vocês, né, sabe? A China não deve nada para vocês. Nada. Nada. Os países que literalmente invadiram a Líbia, né? Invadiram a Líbia, acabaram com a Líbia, cara. Literalmente. Assim, na África, né? Literalmente.
In Kenya and Nigeria, debts to Beijing are growing. These include Kenya's $3.6 billion railway from Mombasa to Nairobi, which reportedly lost $200 million in 3 years of operation, and a $1.3 billion loan from the China Exim Bank to fund Nigeria's largest infrastructure project, a 157-kilometre segment of the Lagos-Kano Railway.
The government itself can't afford to finance these things. The private sector isn't really stepping up. The West has not got an alternative program. So therefore, China is the only game in town and the terms of the loans are reasonable. At the same time, you have members of the National Assembly, particularly from the main opposition party, vocally criticizing the government for what they perceive to be a lack of transparency around the management of the loans from China. They often articulate this worry that you hear in other parts of Africa that China will try and seize Nigerian assets in the event of a default by the Nigerian government.
Por que eles não estão entrevistando um nigeriano, né? Olha quanto branco que tem dando opinião nesse vídeo. Olha quanto branco. E quantos negros, né? Quantos africanos negros estão dando opinião deles nesse vídeo?
But looking closer at Kenya and Nigeria's total public debt, it doesn't appear that China's in a position to use the debt it's owed as leverage.
In Kenya, Chinese loans account for about 10% of the country's $70 billion total debt. And it's even less acute in Nigeria, where the Chinese debts are just about 3 to 4%. So again, we have to focus on the data as it is, not as these narratives and these storytelling, which we have these fantasies that Kenya is going to be taken over by the Chinese. One country cannot control another country just by owning 4 to 10% of its debt.
Only a handful of countries on the African continent have a significant amount of debt owed to China, and most of them owe much more to private bond markets.
Africa does not have a Chinese debt problem. Angola weights about a third of all Chinese debt in Africa. So take Angola out of the issue, then you have an even less serious problem in that respect. So it's very important that we narrow down this problem to be what it is.
But it only takes one bad deal to affirm Western fears.
Os ocidentais não têm medo de nada. Os ocidentais não estão preocupados se os africanos vão pagar as contas. Os ocidentais estão preocupados que eles vão perder a influência deles no país africano. É só isso. É só isso.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, a controversial method of borrowing based on future natural resource revenue has meant some projects have fallen victim to corruption.
Congo has a very, very significant mining industry. It's Africa's biggest producer of copper. It's by far the world's biggest producer of cobalt. Cobalt is a key ingredient in the rechargeable batteries that power electric vehicles. You hear politicians talk about Congo saying that we are to cobalt as Saudi Arabia is to oil. However, up until now, at least, the benefits to government revenue and the benefits to the population at large have been rather limited.
In 2008, China and the Democratic Republic of Congo agreed that Chinese companies would finance $3 billion worth of infrastructure and build a $3.2 billion copper and cobalt project, whose tax-free profits would repay both investments. China, with the help of these mines, has now come to dominate an industry at the heart of future technologies. And leaked documents reveal millions of dollars that flow from Chinese entities, including the multi-billion-dollar mining project, to the family and associates of Congo's then-president, Joseph Kabila.
If the example of Congo applies elsewhere, these companies operate with a real deliberate lack of transparency. And if they find a willing partner in a government, as they did in Joseph Kabila's government, this lack of transparency can extend to and really envelop the relationship between the state and these mining companies.
There is a lot of anxiety in the West over China's involvement anywhere, really, because it's a strong number two to the US. And, being a superpower and China having very strong links with Africa, setting up a lot of logistical supply chains in Africa, preparing to expand its trade and take it to the next level is worrisome, because whatever happens in Africa or whatever happens in Asia ultimately can affect the world order. There's a lot at stake.
Ideology may also be on the line. Countries that receive help from the US or European multilateral development banks often require values that fall in line with democratic nations.
Valores.
Anti-corruption, good governance, transparency, participation, inclusion. These are things that really matter.
A cara do colonizador nem treme, né? A cara do colonizador nem treme, maluco. Não é possível, mano. Valores, os países que até 70 anos atrás estavam colonizando, ou até tipo 5, 10 anos atrás estavam colonizando, não, mas vocês têm que seguir aqui os nossos valores, né? Nossos valores democráticos ocidentais.
We should want projects that are beneficial to the populations, that don't negatively affect them. And so while it may hinder the US in being able to lend to certain countries, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
When countries in Africa take help from China, they're expected to side with or at least not participate in the condemnation of China on key issues including Taiwan and allegations of forced labor in Xinjiang.
On these sensitive red line issues, and Taiwan is certainly one of them, this is where the political relationship becomes more evident and much more important. Africa, more than almost any other region in the world, tends to vote as a bloc in major international organizations and tends to express itself as a group, if not the whole continent. And again, this is the political symbolism that's becoming increasingly important to China from a region like Africa that is so important to the Chinese, much more so in many ways than the resources, which again aren't as important to China simply because they can buy the resources now from any number of other places. But getting this kind of political support is very important in today's geopolitical environment.
We want to show that a democratic, value-driven approach can deliver on the most pressing challenges.
While the US and Europe haven't attempted to try and match China's investment on the continent, they have started work to offer alternatives. The EU's Global Gateway aims to supply 300 billion euros globally between 2020 and 2027. And Build Back Better World, or B3W, from the US aims to address the infrastructure needed in developing countries.
Não deu certo, deu errado, né? A vírgula lá do Medo e Delírio em Brasília deu errado, é isso aí, deu errado. Esse Build Back Better já deu errado, tá? Deu errado. Era uma alternativa à nova Rota da Seda, mas tipo, não foi para lugar nenhum.
Democracies are messy. Things take time in democracies. So while authoritarian regimes such as China are able to speed up the process, or able to get things done quicker, that doesn't mean it's of a better quality. And I think that's really where the US and others, and through the B3W initiative, can really make a difference, is by actually developing and building.
Mano, tu não sabe nem ajustar a tua gravata, cara. Não sabe nem ajustar a tua gravata. Por quê? Porque num vídeo sobre dívida da africana com os chineses, não tem africanos falando, mas tem um branco orelhudo que não sabe arrumar a própria gravata. Por quê? Por quê?
Building high quality infrastructure.
We believe in the nations of Africa, in the continent-wide spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation.
Yet skeptics of US and European-led projects say they're aimed at specifically targeting Chinese influence rather than working with African countries as business partners.
Mas óbvio.
And they lack specific information that have many wondering whether or not they'll result in significant action in Africa.
O cara é o filho perdido do Príncipe Charles e tá aí querendo falar qualquer coisa. Mano, aí, de novo, outro sincericídio, né? Os países ocidentais, eles não estão nem aí para os africanos. Eles querem conter a influência da China. E só.
When you talk to the Chinese, they will tell you that we have come a long way with Africa, both culturally and economically. We have had similar problems as Africa, and we want to help them grow because they were in a position where we were. In Africa, the Africans will tell you we need the money. We have a huge infrastructure gap, and it doesn't matter whether the money is blue or red. As long as it can do the job, we will accept it. When we talk to some of the economists that follow China and the African governments, they will tell you that there has been benefit for these projects overall for Africa. How they have been done, the terms, as well as how these projects have been got, is another story.
Que videozinho, né, cara? Bom, mas pelo menos vocês viram, né? Com dados, com um especialista falando que, né, essa história de armadilha da dívida chinesa não existe, né? Não existe. É só a narrativa dos países colonizadores safados, que a gente sabe que eles não estão nem aí para africanos, né? Não estão nem aí, eles só não querem perder a boquinha deles na África, eles só não querem parar de sugar a África de graça, como eles fizeram por séculos, né? Mas tá aí, tá visto.